I never stopped loving you, Evelyn. I just learned to love him more. The words hung in the cold October air like poison. Evelyn stood frozen in the doorway of the lakeside cabin, her hand still gripping her car keys so tight the metal cut into her palm. Inside, through the window she'd been watching for the past 20 minutes, her mother, Caroline, sat on a leather couch beside Sebastian, her husband. His hand was on her thigh, her head was on his shoulder, and between them, on the coffee table, sat 2 wine glasses and the kind of comfortable silence that only comes from intimacy. Rain hammered the roof of Evelyn's Honda. Thunder rolled across Lake Michigan like a bowling ball down Heaven's Alley. But she couldn't hear any of it over the sound of her own heartbeat shattering. The porch light flicked on. Sebastian's face appeared in the window. He didn't look surprised. He looked relieved. That's when Evelyn knew this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a choice they'd been making over and over again, possibly for months, possibly since the wedding. Her legs buckled. She caught herself on the porch railing, splinters digging into her palm. The keys slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the wet wood. She didn't pick them up. She just stood there, soaked through, watching the 2 people she loved most in the world decide whether or not to come outside and explain. They didn't. Instead, Caroline stood and closed the curtains. Slowly. Deliberately. Like Evelyn was a stranger they didn't owe anything to. That was the moment. Not when she found the receipts. Not when she followed the Tesla through 3 towns. Not even when she saw them through the window. It was the closing of those curtains, the final quiet dismissal, that destroyed her. But what Caroline didn't know, what Sebastian couldn't have predicted, was that the woman standing in that rain wasn't going to cry herself to sleep and disappear. She wasn't going to forgive, or forget, or move on quietly. She was going to build something neither of them could ignore. And in 5 years, when they sat across from her in a sterile conference room begging for mercy, she would remember this exact moment, and she would close the door on them just as slowly, just as deliberately. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. If you've ever been betrayed by the people you trusted most, stay with me. Because what happens next isn't just a story. It's a blueprint. Evelyn Harper, before she was Evelyn Grayson, grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment in Gary, Indiana, the kind of place where the heat only worked 3 months out of the year and the walls were so thin you could hear your neighbors' arguments and apologies in equal measure. Her father left when she was 4, walked out during a snowstorm with a duffel bag and a woman from the plastics factory where he worked 3rd shift. Evelyn only remembered him in flashes, the smell of cigarette smoke, the sound of his work boots on the stairs, the way he called her kid instead of her name. Caroline raised her alone, worked double shifts as a nursing assistant at the county hospital, came home smelling like antiseptic and exhaustion. But she always asked about Evelyn's day, always checked her homework, always made sure there was something hot for dinner, even if it was just buttered noodles and canned green beans. "We take care of our own," Caroline used to say, brushing Evelyn's hair before bed. "When the world turns its back on you, family is all you've got." Evelyn believed her. She believed her when Caroline showed up to every school play, even the ones where Evelyn had 2 lines and stood in the back. She believed her when Caroline stayed up all night sewing Evelyn's prom dress by hand because they couldn't afford to buy one. She believed her when Caroline cried at her college acceptance letter, holding Evelyn's face in her hands and whispering, "You did it, baby. You're going to have everything I never had." Evelyn got a full ride to Indiana University, studied business administration, waited tables on weekends, and sent money home when she could. She called Caroline every Sunday, visited every holiday. When she graduated summa cum laude, Caroline was in the front row, holding a bouquet of grocery store roses and sobbing so hard her mascara ran. That was the woman Evelyn knew. The woman who sacrificed, the woman who showed up, the woman who said family was everything. So when Evelyn met Sebastian Grayson at a corporate networking event in downtown Chicago 3 years later, and he asked about her family, she didn't hesitate. "My mom's my hero," Evelyn said, swirling cheap champagne in a plastic flute. "She gave up everything so I could be here." Sebastian smiled. He had one of those smiles that looked expensive, straight white teeth, confident but not cocky, like he'd been practicing it his whole life. "I'd love to meet her," he said. And God help her, Evelyn believed that too. Sebastian Grayson came from money. Not old money, but the kind of new money that pretends to be old. His father owned a chain of luxury car dealerships across the Midwest. His mother sat on charity boards and threw fundraisers where the appetizers cost more than Evelyn's childhood rent. But Sebastian was different, or at least, that's what Evelyn told herself. He didn't talk about money. He talked about purpose, about building something meaningful. He worked in private equity, analyzing companies and making investments. He wore tailored suits but drove a Tesla to be environmentally conscious. He tipped well. He remembered servers' names. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. When he met Caroline for the first time, he brought flowers. Not gas station carnations. Real flowers. Peonies. Caroline's favorite. Evelyn had mentioned it once in passing 6 weeks earlier. He remembered. They had dinner at a family-style Italian restaurant on the South Side. Sebastian insisted on paying. He asked Caroline about her work, about her childhood, about how she raised Evelyn alone. He laughed at her stories. He called her ma'am in that polite Midwestern way that made older women blush. When they left, Caroline pulled Evelyn aside in the parking lot. "That one's a keeper," she said, squeezing Evelyn's hand. "Don't let him get away." Evelyn didn't. They were engaged 8 months later, married 6 months after that. Small ceremony, 50 people in a botanical garden in Oak Park. Caroline walked Evelyn down the aisle, cried through the vows, caught the bouquet even though she wasn't supposed to. At the reception, Sebastian danced with Caroline. A real dance, not the obligatory 30-second sway. He twirled her, made her laugh, told her she looked beautiful. Evelyn watched from the head table, champagne in hand, and thought, this is what happiness looks like. She had no idea she was watching the opening act of her own destruction. The first 6 months of marriage were textbook. They moved into a condo in Lincoln Park. Evelyn took a job at a mid-sized consulting firm. Sebastian got promoted to senior analyst. They hosted dinner parties. They talked about buying a house, about kids, about the future. Caroline visited twice a month, sometimes more. She'd show up with groceries or homemade casseroles, or just because she was in the neighborhood. Evelyn loved it. She loved that her mom and her husband got along, loved that Sunday dinners felt like family. But then the late nights started. At first, it was once a week. Sebastian would text around 7. "Big deal closing. Gonna be late. Don't wait up." Then it was twice a week, then 3 times. He'd come home smelling like cologne and takeout. He'd kiss her on the forehead, mumble something about exhaustion, and fall asleep on the couch. When Evelyn asked about work, he gave vague answers. Client meetings, investor calls. You know how it is. She didn't, actually, but she trusted him, so she let it go. Then Caroline started canceling. Sunday dinners became every other Sunday, then once a month. When Evelyn called, Caroline sounded distracted, distant. "I'm just tired, honey. Work's been crazy." But Caroline had been working crazy hours Evelyn's entire life. Exhaustion never stopped her before. It was small things. Separately, they meant nothing. Together, they formed a pattern. Sebastian's phone faced down on the counter. The way he angled his laptop screen away when she walked by. The new gym membership he never talked about. The 2-hour workouts that left him showered and smelling like expensive soap but not particularly tired. And Caroline. Caroline, who used to call Evelyn every other day, now took hours to respond to texts. Caroline, who used to know every detail of Evelyn's life, now asked questions she should already know the answers to. Caroline, who used to visit without warning, now needed 3 days' notice and a detailed reason why. Evelyn told herself she was being paranoid. Marriage was an adjustment. People got busy. Life happened. But paranoia has a way of proving itself right. It was a Thursday, October 19th. Evelyn left work early, a rare slow day. Her boss told her to take the afternoon. She stopped by the condo to change and noticed Sebastian's Tesla was still in the garage. Weird. He'd left at 7 that morning in a suit. Said he had meetings all day in the suburbs. She checked the app. They shared locations. His idea, something about safety and trust. The blue dot pulsed from a spot 2 hours north, a small town near the Wisconsin border called Lake Geneva. She zoomed in. The pin dropped on a private road surrounded by woods. Evelyn stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, heart starting to race. She told herself it was a work trip. Maybe a client had a vacation home. Maybe it was a retreat. But the dot had been there since 9 in the morning, and it was almost 3 now. She grabbed her keys. The drive took 2 hours and 15 minutes. The whole way, Evelyn's mind played out scenarios. An affair, a secret business deal, a surprise. Maybe he was planning something for their anniversary next month. Maybe Caroline was helping. Maybe this was all a misunderstanding. The road turned from highway to county route to gravel. Trees closed in on both sides. The GPS said she was half a mile away. Then she saw it. The Tesla, parked in a driveway beside a cabin made of dark wood and glass. Smoke curled from the chimney. Warm light glowed in the windows. Evelyn parked 50 yards down the road, behind a cluster of pine trees. She didn't know why she hid. Instinct, maybe. Or fear of what she'd find if she didn't. She walked up the gravel drive, quietly, each step crunching too loud in the silence. She reached the porch, looked through the window, and there they were, Sebastian and Caroline, sitting close, too close, his arm around her shoulders, her hand on his chest, laughing about something, comfortable, familiar. Evelyn's stomach dropped. Her knees went weak. She grabbed the porch railing to keep from falling. She told herself it was innocent, a hug between family, a moment taken out of context. But then Sebastian leaned in and kissed her, not on the cheek, on the mouth, slow, deliberate. And Caroline, the woman who raised Evelyn, who taught her about loyalty and love and family, kissed him back. Evelyn didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't burst through the door. She just stood there, watching. The rain started, cold and sudden. It soaked through her coat, through her shirt, through her skin. She didn't move. And then Caroline stood, walked to the window, looked directly at Evelyn. For a moment their eyes met, mother and daughter, betrayer and betrayed. Caroline didn't look guilty. She looked tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of hiding. She reached up and closed the curtains. That's when Evelyn broke. She didn't remember driving home, didn't remember unlocking the condo door or collapsing on the bathroom floor. But that's where she woke up 6 hours later, curled on the tile, shivering, her clothes still damp, her face swollen from crying. Her phone had 17 missed calls, 12 from Sebastian, 5 from Caroline. She didn't listen to the voicemails, didn't read the texts. She just sat there staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of her life caving in. The woman who raised her, the woman who told her family was everything, the woman who cried at her wedding, that woman had been sleeping with her husband. And judging by how comfortable they looked, how familiar, it wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an accident. This was a choice, made over and over again. While Evelyn worked, while she cooked dinner, while she talked about babies and houses and the future she thought they were building together. The lies weren't just in what they did. They were in every smile, every Sunday dinner, every text message, every "I love you" had been a performance. Evelyn pulled herself off the floor, looked in the mirror. Her eyes were red, Her face was pale. She looked destroyed. Good. She needed to remember this moment, this feeling, because it was fuel. She didn't know what she was going to do yet, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She wasn't going to let them win. Sebastian came home at 2 in the morning, used his key, walked in like nothing was wrong. Evelyn was sitting on the couch in the dark, waiting. "Hey," he said, casual, like he'd been at the office. "You're up late." She didn't respond. He flipped on the light, saw her face, and his expression shifted, just slightly, from casual to cautious. "Ev, what's wrong?" She stood, slowly, walked to the kitchen counter, picked up her phone, pulled up the location app, turned it toward him. "Lake Geneva," she said. Her voice was calm, too calm. "You were in Lake Geneva today?" His jaw tightened. "It was a work thing." "Try again." Silence. "I saw you, Sebastian. I saw both of you." He didn't deny it. That's how she knew it was real. If it had been innocent, he would have laughed it off, would have explained. But he just stood there, hands in his pockets, looking at the floor. "How long?" Evelyn asked. "Ev." "How long?" "A year." The number hit her like a fist. A year. Their entire marriage. Before the marriage. During the engagement. "Since when?" He hesitated. Then, quietly, "Since the wedding planning." Evelyn laughed. It was a sick, broken sound. "The wedding planning? Jesus Christ, Sebastian. She helped me pick the dress. I didn't mean for it to happen. But it did. Over and over again. For a year. It's complicated." "No," Evelyn said, her voice shaking now. "It's actually really simple. You're a liar. And so is she. She loves you, Evelyn." "Don't." Her voice cracked. "Don't you dare say that." Sebastian ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I know this is bad. I know. But we can figure this out." "Figure it out?" Evelyn stared at him. "You want to figure it out?" "I care about you, I do, but I also—" He stopped himself. "Say it. I love her." There it was. The truth. Plain and simple. Evelyn nodded slowly. "Get out." "Ev, get out." He didn't argue, just grabbed his coat and left. The door clicked shut behind him, and Evelyn stood in the kitchen, alone, surrounded by the life she thought she'd built, the wedding photos on the wall, the coffee mugs they'd bought together, the future that had just evaporated. She didn't cry. Not this time. She poured herself a glass of water, sat down at the kitchen table, and started making a list. If you've stuck with me this far, you're probably wondering what happens next. How does someone come back from this? How do you rebuild when the two people you trusted most burn your life to the ground? The answer isn't what you think, but it's worth hearing. So keep watching and subscribe. The divorce was fast. Sebastian didn't contest anything. Didn't ask for the condo, the savings, the furniture. He just signed the papers and walked away. Guilty people don't fight. They run. Evelyn kept everything. The condo, the joint account, the car. It should have felt like a win. It felt like ashes. Caroline tried to call, 30 times in the first week. Evelyn blocked her number. Then Caroline showed up at the condo. Evelyn didn't answer the door. "Please, Evelyn," Caroline shouted through the wood. "Just talk to me. Let me explain." Evelyn sat on the couch, headphones on, music loud, drowning out her mother's voice. "I know you're in there. Please, I never wanted to hurt you." Evelyn turned up the volume. After an hour, Caroline left. Evelyn watched from the window as her mother sat in the car, head on the steering wheel, shoulders shaking. Good. Let her cry. Let her feel 1/10 of what Evelyn felt. The first month was a fog. Evelyn went to work, came home, ordered takeout, stared at the TV without watching it. She lost 12 pounds. Her co-workers asked if she was okay. She said she was fine. Nobody believed her. At night, she lay awake replaying everything. Every dinner, every conversation, every time Caroline and Sebastian were in the same room. looking for signs she missed, clues she should have seen. They were there. Of course they were. The way Sebastian always offered to pick Caroline up for Sunday dinners. The way Caroline always laughed a little too hard at his jokes. The shared glances Evelyn had written off as family bonding. It was all there. She'd just been too trusting to see it, and that's what hurt most. Not the betrayal itself, but the fact that she'd been so easy to fool. By the end of the first month, Evelyn made a decision. She wasn't going to spiral. She wasn't going to let this define her. She wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of watching her fall apart. She was going to get up, and she was going to build something they could never touch. The consulting firm where Evelyn worked was small. Respectable, but not prestigious. She handled mid-level accounts, retail chains, regional banks, family-owned businesses looking to expand. It paid well enough, but it wasn't what she'd dreamed about in college. It wasn't the empire she'd imagined building. Now, though, she had nothing to lose. She started staying late, taking on extra projects, volunteering for the accounts no one else wanted, the messy ones, the ones that required travel and long hours and complicated solutions. Her boss, a man named Richard Chen, noticed. "You okay, Harper?" he asked one night, finding her alone in the office at 9 p.m., spreadsheets open on 3 monitors. "Fine," she said, not looking up. "Just trying to close this deal." "This deal closed 2 weeks ago. You're doing extra work." "I like being thorough." Richard pulled up a chair. "I've been doing this 20 years. I know what thorough looks like. This isn't thorough. This is avoidance." Evelyn stopped typing, looked at him. "You going through something?" he asked. She wanted to lie, say everything was fine, but she was too tired. "Divorce," she said. Richard nodded. "That'll do it." He paused. "You thinking about quitting?" "No." "Good. Because you're too good at this to waste it drowning in work to forget your personal life." "I'm not drowning. I'm focused." "Same thing, different spin." He stood. "Look, Harper, whatever you're running from, it'll still be there when you're done. But if you're going to run, at least run toward something." He left. Evelyn sat in the silence of the empty office, and she realized he was right. She wasn't running toward anything. She was just running. So she asked herself, what do I actually want? The answer came fast. She wanted to build something that mattered, something that couldn't be taken away, something Sebastian and Caroline could never claim credit for. She wanted to prove she didn't need them, didn't need anyone. She wanted power, real power, the kind that spoke for itself, and she wanted them to see it. 3 months later, Evelyn pitched Richard on an idea. One of their clients, a small manufacturing company in Indiana, was drowning. Bad management, outdated equipment, mounting debt. Richard's team had recommended they shut down, cut losses, move on. But Evelyn saw something else. She saw a company with a loyal customer base, a strong product, and leadership that just needed direction. "Let me take it," she said. Richard frowned. "Take it how?" "Let me buy in, partner with them, fix it." "With what capital?" "I've got savings, and I'll find investors." "That's a hell of a risk, Harper." "I know." He studied her. "Why?" "Because I'm tired of playing it safe." Richard leaned back in his chair, smiled slightly. "All right, I won't stop you. But don't come crying to me when it blows up." "I won't." She didn't. Evelyn liquidated everything. The condo, the savings, the car. Moved into a studio apartment on the west side. Took the train to work. Lived on rice, beans, and instant coffee. She found 3 investors willing to take a chance on her. Small amounts, high stakes. She spent 6 months analyzing every inch of the manufacturing company, cutting waste, renegotiating contracts, firing dead weight, promoting people who cared. It was brutal. 16-hour days, weekends, holidays. She missed birthdays, stopped answering calls from old friends, became the kind of person she used to feel sorry for. But it worked. Within a year, the company was profitable. Within 2, it had expanded to 3 states. Within 3, Evelyn owned 40% of it and had a seat on the board. She reinvested everything, bought 2 more struggling companies, applied the same model, cut, rebuild, scale. She became known in the industry, the woman who turned lost causes into success stories. The fixer, the closer. People started coming to her, desperate CEOs, failing founders, investors looking for someone who could see value where others saw ruin. Evelyn didn't do it for them. She did it for herself. Every contract she signed was proof. Every company she saved was another brick in the wall she was building between herself and the past. Sebastian and Caroline became background noise, ghosts in a life that no longer had room for them. 5 years. That's how long it took. 5 years of grinding, of sacrifice, of building something from nothing. By year 5, Evelyn owned stakes in 7 companies. She'd launched her own private equity firm, Harper Ventures. She had a team of 12. An office in downtown Chicago with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. She wasn't rich, not billionaire rich, but she was comfortable. Comfortable enough to never worry about rent or groceries or whether she could afford to fix her car. More than that, she was respected. When she walked into a room, people listened. When she made a call, things happened. She'd rebuilt herself, piece by piece, without Sebastian, without Caroline, without anyone. And then, on a cold morning in November, her assistant buzzed her. "Ms. Harper, you have a walk-in." "I don't take walk-ins." "I know, but she says it's urgent, says her name is Caroline Mitchell." Evelyn's hand froze over her keyboard. She hadn't heard that name in 5 years, hadn't thought about it in months. "Tell her I'm busy." "She says she'll wait." Evelyn closed her eyes, took a breath. "Fine, send her in." Caroline looked older, thinner. Her hair was streaked with more gray than Evelyn remembered. She wore a simple coat and jeans. No makeup, no pretense. She stood in the doorway like she wasn't sure she was allowed to enter. "Hi, Evelyn." Evelyn didn't stand, didn't smile, just gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Sit." Caroline sat, folded her hands in her lap. "You look good," Caroline said quietly. "What do you want?" "I wanted to see you, to talk." "You've had 5 years to talk. Why now?" Caroline looked down. "Because I'm dying." Evelyn's expression didn't change. "Okay." "Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. They're saying 6 months, maybe less." "I'm sorry to hear that." Caroline flinched at the coldness in Evelyn's voice. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, I know that. But I needed to see you, to tell you I'm sorry. For everything." "Okay? That's it? Just okay?" Evelyn leaned back in her chair. "What do you want me to say, Caroline? That I forgive you? That it's all water under the bridge, that I understand?" "I don't know, I just—" Caroline's voice broke. "I just want you to know I never stopped loving you." "You had a funny way of showing it." "I made a mistake, a terrible, unforgivable mistake." "For a year," Evelyn said. "You made that mistake for a year, every Sunday, every dinner, every time you looked me in the eye and lied." "I know. And now you're dying, and you want absolution." Caroline's eyes filled with tears. "I just want my daughter back." Evelyn stood, walked to the window, looked out at the city below, the cars, the people, the world that had kept spinning while hers fell apart. "I'm not your daughter anymore," she said quietly. "That girl died the night you closed those curtains." "Evelyn, you taught me family was everything. You taught me loyalty, you taught me trust." She turned to face Caroline. "And then you showed me those were just words. Pretty lies people tell themselves. I was weak. You were selfish." Silence. Caroline wiped her eyes. "What happened to Sebastian?" "I don't know, I don't care." "You don't talk to him?" "Why would I?" "I thought maybe, I don't know, I thought maybe you two worked it out." Evelyn almost laughed. "No, He left. You want to know where he is? Ask him yourself. You two were always good at keeping secrets. Caroline stood. I deserve that. You deserve worse. They stood there, 10 feet apart, 5 years of silence between them. I'm sorry, Evelyn. I know that doesn't mean anything, but I am. You're sorry you're dying, Evelyn said. You're sorry you're alone. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you have to face the consequences. Caroline nodded slowly. Maybe you're right. She walked to the door, paused. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you, of what you've built. Don't, Evelyn said. Don't try to take credit for this. You didn't build this. I did. Alone. Caroline left. Evelyn stood at the window for a long time, watching the city, feeling nothing. Caroline died 4 months later. Evelyn got a call from a hospice nurse. She didn't go to the funeral, didn't send flowers, didn't send anything. A week later, a lawyer contacted her. Caroline had left her everything, the house, the savings, a handwritten letter. Evelyn threw the letter away without reading it, donated the money to a women's shelter, sold the house. She didn't need Caroline's money, didn't need her apology. She'd already won. 2 years later, Evelyn was in a conference room on the 40th floor of a high-rise in downtown Chicago. She was there to finalize the acquisition of a struggling tech startup. Standard deal. Quick close. The founders were desperate. They'd burned through their funding, lost their biggest client, and were 3 months from bankruptcy. Evelyn's team had done the due diligence. The company had potential, good product, bad leadership, classic case. She walked into the conference room, her lawyer on her left, her CFO on her right, and across the table, looking pale and defeated, sat Sebastian Grayson. He looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Evelyn, he said finally. Mr. Grayson. Her voice was steady, professional. He blinked. You're Harper Ventures? I am. I didn't realize. Why would you? He looked at the contracts on the table, at her team, at the woman he'd betrayed 7 years ago, now sitting across from him in a $1,500 suit, holding his company's future in her hands. You look good, he said quietly. Let's skip the small talk. Her CFO slid the contracts across the table. Standard terms. We acquire 60% equity. You stay on as a consultant for 2 years. After that, we reevaluate. Sebastian scanned the papers. This is generous. It's fair, Evelyn said. I don't deserve fair. Not from you. This isn't about you, it's about the company. It's about the 30 people who work here and don't deserve to lose their jobs because you made bad decisions. Sebastian set down the pen, looked at her. I'm sorry, Evelyn, for everything. I know. Do you forgive me? She smiled. Not a warm smile, not a cruel smile. Just a smile that said, you don't matter anymore. I don't think about you enough to forgive you, she said. He flinched. Sign the papers, Sebastian. Or don't. Either way, I'm done here. He signed. Harper Ventures grew. 10 companies. Then 15. Then 20. Evelyn became a name, not a celebrity, not a household brand, but in the world of private equity and business turnarounds, she was a legend. She gave talks at conferences, mentored young entrepreneurs, funded scholarships for women from low-income backgrounds. She didn't do it for redemption. She did it because she remembered what it felt like to have nothing, to be underestimated, to be betrayed, and she wanted to make sure the next generation didn't have to claw their way up alone. She never remarried, never had kids. Some people whispered she was cold, unforgiving, broken. Maybe she was, but she was also free. Free from the people who hurt her, free from the need for their approval, free from the girl who believed family was everything. She'd built a new family, a chosen one, people who earned her trust, who proved their loyalty, who showed up when it mattered. And when she looked back on her life, on the girl standing in the rain outside that cabin, watching her world collapse, she didn't feel sad. She felt grateful, because that moment, as painful as it was, had set her free. 10 years after the divorce, Evelyn stood in her office late one Friday night. The city lights glittered below. The office was empty, quiet. Her assistant had left a folder on her desk, a profile on a new acquisition target. She opened it, and there, in the list of board members, was a familiar name: Sebastian Grayson. She smiled, closed the folder, tossed it in the recycling. Some battles aren't worth fighting, some people aren't worth remembering, and some victories are quiet. Evelyn Harper never got her fairy tale ending. She didn't reconcile with her mother, didn't fall in love again, didn't get the Hollywood closure people expect, but she got something better. She got herself back, and in the end, that was enough. So here's my question for you. When the people you trust most betray you, do you let it destroy you? Or do you let it rebuild you into something they could never break again? If Evelyn's story touched your heart and reminded you that betrayal doesn't define you, your response to it does, please smash that like button, subscribe to our channel for more incredible true-to-life stories of resilience and quiet revenge, and comment below telling us what part of Evelyn's journey hit you the hardest. Was it the moment she saw them through that window? The day Caroline showed up at her office? Or the cold professionalism when Sebastian sat across from her 7 years later? Should we do a follow-up exploring what happened to Sebastian and whether he ever truly understood what he lost? Let us know in the comments. Remember, your current pain is not your final chapter. Every empire starts with a single decision to stand up one more time than you've been knocked down. The people who betrayed you are watching. Make sure they see something they can never touch. See you in the next one.